Hari Om. Welcome one and all to this 8-week talk series on Manashodhanam. Hari Om Vedji. We will start today's session with an invocation by Jai Shri Rao.
ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः समस्त जन कल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम् ॐ श्री चिन्मय सद्गुरवे नमः हरि ओम.
Thanks, Jai Shri. Request Anamika to introduce Vedji.
Hari Om Vedji and Hari Om to everyone. It's my honor and privilege to introduce Vedji. We at Mahima Zone have a lot of fond memory sessions with Vedji on the Sanatan Dharma, on parenting, and many more. And we are grateful that even from Ernakulam, we have access to his sessions. So for all of you who are meeting him for the first time, here goes an introduction. The best way to serve a Mahatma is to follow his teachings with utmost sincerity, says Brahmachari Ved Chaitanya, who is serving at the Chinmay International Foundation in Ernakulam. Family, which has always been active in the Chinmay mission, being inspired by the Swamins of the Chinmay mission, has been a disciplined sevak of Pujya Gurudev. He's completed his graduation in electronics and telecommunication engineering from Pune University and has also worked in Tata Consultancy Services before he joined the residential Vedant course in the Sandipani and Pavai. This was in the year 2011. After completing the 2 years of rigorous training under the guidance of Pujya Swami Tejamanji and the tutelage of Swami Advainanji and also Brahmachari Sambit Chaitanya, he received the Brahmachari Diksha on the Ganesh Chaturthi day in 2013. Being a very versatile orator, he conducts regular study classes for Balvihars for children and workshops for youngsters in English. He conducts all these workshops in English, in Hindi, and in Marathi. Brahmachari Ved Chaitanya, young dynamism with pure wisdom. As a person, he is very cheerful and kind-hearted, who is always loved by all, right from small kids to the elders. He's also very good at playing the tabla and has had several opportunities to accompany Pujya Guruji. So here's wishing all of you a beautiful journey in the purification of mind, the Manashodhanam.
Thanks, Anamika. Before we start today's session, just a few announcements. All of you are requested to keep yourselves on muted. Okay. Please do not ask questions in the middle of the session. There'll be a separate question answer session at the end of the talk. Okay, and when you ask, if you have any questions and you need to ask them, please put your video on, introduce yourself, and then ask the question. The link remains the same for all the 8 sessions. So please use that link. It will be remaining the same all throughout. Okay. Thank you. Hari Om. Over to you, Vedji.
Hari Om. You can keep your videos on throughout the session. Audios can be muted, and whenever I will ask for you to ask any question, then you can unmute yourself and then ask questions. Is that okay? Yeah. See, because everything is now virtual, isn't it? So this also is virtual, but unless I see your faces, I won't be able to understand whether you're getting the point or whether I have to elaborate, etc. So it will be good if you can keep your videos on, preferably light on your face rather than behind you. Aura will come, spiritual aura will come. Don't worry about that. But till that time, light can be on your face. That will help. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Saraswatyai Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Pada Shankaram Loka Shankaram Samastajana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahmavitvaram Sadgurum Brahmavitvaram. So Hari Om to all. Starting from today, for next 8 sessions, we are going to discuss on this wonderful text, Manashodhanam, authored by our own Pujya Guruji, Swami Tejomayanandaji. So before we get into the text, let us first understand why. Many people, like to ask questions, and most of their questions start with why. Though in philosophy, in Vedanta, etc., generally the questions starting with why are not that important, considered not that important, because questions beginning with why majority of the times don't have satisfactory answers. You see, why is 2 called as 2? Answer. Try answering. I used to ask this question when I was in school. Why is 2 called as 2? Why not 2 called as 3? Why did God create the world? Hey, why are you asking me? Go and ask God. He created the world. Why are you asking me? Why did he behave like this with me? You see, generally the questions starting with why are not going to have a satisfactory answer. Whatever the person may give, we may not have a satisfactory answer, but we do have these questions of starting with why. So let us start with one such question. Why these sessions? Essential question, because unless you understand why are we having these sessions, what is the need of it, what is the purpose behind it, we may not be able to fully gain the required thing that we are supposed to from these sessions. Every one of us at some point of time have asked this question to ourselves or to others also. What is the purpose of our life? Have you asked this question? You may have asked it in a different way. Why are we born? Why is human life? What is the goal of human life? What are we supposed to do? We may have asked it in a different ways, but this question is very pertinent and it comes to all of us at different point of time. And that is, what is the purpose of human life? Now, before we go into that philosophical answer to that, etc., let us ask a simple question. What do we generally want from our life? Because if we understand that, then the rest of the things will become easy. What do we want from life? So somebody will say, Swamiji, everybody wants, Vedji, everybody wants different things in life. Some people want a lot of money. Some people want a lot of name and fame. Somebody want, no, not money, fame, etc. That, that comes and goes, but what I want is, I want comfortable life. Okay, even if this life is not comfortable, I want to make sure that my next life, or if I go to heaven, etc., I should have a nice life. Everybody has got different ways. Somebody will say, no, Swamiji, I will tell you. People should be there around you. Family should be there. Friends should be there. That is life. Without that, what is the life? Okay, so some people will say that also. But if I ask, what is one thing that everybody wants? What is one thing that everybody wants? And the answer will be happiness. Simple. Okay. I know some of you are not new to Vedanta. Okay. Some of you are, well versed in Vedanta, have studied for a long time, but still there are other people who might be attending for the first time. Okay. So this introduction is required for them. And for you also, some new points you may get. Anyways, so this question, what do we want? If I have to have one common denominator for all the people, all the humans, all the beings, the answer is we want happiness. Now, how do we gain happiness? Everybody has got different ways. Somebody says happiness is being with people. Somebody has exact opposite view. Happiness is being alone. They say people is too much. They will keep talking and they will keep doing this and that, and alone is good. How you want to eat your food? Alone. Somebody say, no, what is there fun in sitting alone? Some people should be there around, and then there should be jokes, etc. Everybody's concept of happiness may be different. Somebody may enjoy sleeping, somebody may enjoy eating, somebody may enjoy walking, somebody may enjoy running, and therefore they do all that for what? For gaining that happiness. So though our concepts rather may differ as to how do we become happy, but all of us want to be happy. There is no change. There is no exception in that. But if all of us at all times want to be happy, why are we not happy? Are we happy? Guruji says you should ask this question only once. Why? Because first time when you ask somebody, how are you? How everybody says, hey, I'm fine. Fine. Nice. Happy. But the moment you ask it second time, then the list starts. Hey, everything is fine, but then that after that, but then everything will start. My son is not listening to me, and nowadays, because of this situation, daughter-in-law is like this, and then my mother-in-law, is like that, and my children are, my parents are, my husband. Swamiji, what? Good only you didn't get married, good. Thank you. Why? Because after that, but there will be all the things which will be in the 6s and 7s, and you will say that I am happy, but I am not happy. If ultimately all of us are trying to be happy all the time, we see that most of the times we are not happy. Why? Why? Something must be going wrong somewhere, isn't it? Because of which we are not able to track out. We have not yet found out that secret, that if I do this, I will be happy. We have not found it. And you see, we cannot say that happiness is in a particular thing, or particular object, or in a particular situation. We can't say that. Why? Because those things remaining the same, our happiness changes. If I say happiness is in TV, and nowadays TV nobody watches. Okay, happiness is in phone. There was a time that TV people used to watch. Nowadays there are so many other things, so TV etc. has gone on a back seat. But anyways, suppose you say happiness is in mobile or phone. Not necessary. Why? Because what gets me happy in my phone may be very different from what gets you happy in your phone. There is no one thing which will make all of us happy. Also, what makes me happy at one point of time may not make me happy another point of time. Sometimes, we keep checking WhatsApp. Anybody has messaged? Anybody has messaged? Nobody is messaging you because they are all busy in their own life. But because we don't have anything to do, therefore we keep checking. Anybody message? Now, sometimes when we get somebody's message, we are happy. Somebody message. Sometimes we get somebody's message, we are irritated. Why is this person messaging me? I told I am busy. You don't understand. So we can't say that getting a message is happiness. Eating ice cream is happiness. We can't say that. Sometimes it may look like that, but it is not always. Happiness is not found in a particular object or in particular person or in a particular situation. And that's why we keep trying different things. Let us try this way, probably I will get happiness. Let us try that way, probably I will get happiness. But one thing that will always give us happiness is if we turn within. Now, this is where spirituality comes in place. Every single person in this whole world wants happiness. But who is a spiritual person? A spiritual person is one who seeks the happiness from within. Careful. Adhyatmika, spiritual. Adhyatma, spirituality. What do you mean by spirituality? That which pertains to oneself. Means what? When I want to find happiness, if I turn within, then I am a spiritual person. Not only for happiness, when I want to find any solution for anything, if I turn within and say that there is some problem within, if I correct that, I will get solution, then I am a spiritual person. Why should I be spiritual person? Because happiness actually lies within us. And therefore, as long as I am going outside, trying different things outside to become happy, I may become happy for some time, but that is only going to be a fleeting joy and never going to be permanent happiness. The only intelligent way is to turn within. There is a very famous story that is generally told, that one old lady at night under a street lamp was searching something. And very carefully with her stick in her hand, could not even stand properly, she was bent and she was searching for something. 4 youngsters were walking from that road and they saw this old lady searching and said, Amma, you want any help? What are you searching, you tell? So the old lady said, I am searching for my pin, safety pin. So they said, oh, no problem, we are there. You must be old, not able to see properly. We will help you. And all 4 of them started to search for what? For that safety pin. So they kept searching, nothing happened. They didn't find anything. Now you see youngsters' mind. They came back to that Amma and said, Amma, please tell us, where were you standing? At what direction, what angle? How did it fall? So that we will track. Youngsters think that everything, if it is logical, it will work. Anyway, so they started asking these questions and the Amma started to answer. And Amma said, you see, I was sitting in my room and I was stitching something. I was using that safety pin for that. And at that time, it fell down. Now the youngsters paused. They said, what did you say? You were sitting in your room? She said, yes, I was sitting in my room. See there, that near that cottage, that is my room. So they were surprised. They said, if you are sitting in the room and the pin fell down in the room, why are you searching here? So old lady said, because in my room there is no light, no electricity, no light. Here there is street light. Therefore I am searching here. Now you may laugh, but remember, in the story, we are that old lady. We are searching for happiness where it is not there. Now, even if you search for 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days, 5 lifetimes, you are never going to get safety pin there because it is not there. Similarly, if we keep searching for happiness in things, objects, people, situations, places, we are never going to get it. Why? Because it is not there. Essentially, the happiness is within us. Rather, happiness is us. This is what Vedanta is telling. This is what spirituality is. And therefore, the moment we stop searching for happiness and the moment we start seeking that happiness within, our spiritual journey, our spiritual life starts. You see, interestingly, if you see all the emojis on the WhatsApp, You know, all the emojis where they are smiling, their eyes are closed. Only when they are angry, etc., their eyes will be closed, and different kinds of eyes will be there. But whenever they are smiling, their eyes will be closed. Why? Because they also know that you don't need to see anything outside when you are happy. Why? Because the happiness is within. Very often we go to a very far off place. Very often we go to some temple, and the moment we reach there, we close our eyes. Why? Because the God to seeing whom you came all the way is actually inside you. You know it. Instinctively, you know it. And therefore, without noticing, we close our eyes. When some sweet you taste for the first time, let us not say for the first time, after a long time. Now, we are in a situation where everything is going to happen after a long time. Oh, I am going out after a long time. I'm going to eat this after a long time. Now, the moment you take that after a long time, that eyes are closed. You see? Why? Because that experience is within. The happiness is within. We know it. Only thing is that we have not noticed it. So now that we have understood that actually the happiness that we all want lies within us, the next question is, what do I do to experience that happiness within? What should I do? Is there anything special that I have to do? We often get confused about what is my duty? What am I supposed to do? You see, because the moment purpose is clear, what I want is clear, then what am I supposed to do is also clear. Sometimes it happens that you come out, to go to some place, but by the time you are taking out your bike or car, you forget what you are supposed to do, isn't it? Then you say, why did I come? Yeah, I have to go to market. And the moment purpose is clear, now you have to start the vehicle and do it. Many times that happens with phone also. You take phone in hand for some particular purpose, for doing something, but then you see some message and then you do, and then you start wondering, why did I pick up the phone? So the moment you understand what you want, the next question, what should I do, becomes clear. Now that I know that I want happiness which lies within, and therefore I am not supposed to go outside, but I am supposed to go within. The question of what should I do will not arise. How should I do it may arise, but what should I do will not arise. Similar situation is there if you see Bhagavad Gita, very first chapter, where Arjuna is confused about what am I supposed to do. We all know the story that war is about to start. They are all ready for it. Both the armies are standing arrayed in front of each other. And at this point, the man of the moment, the most important person, the most important warrior probably in the whole war, got confused and said, I don't know what am I supposed to do. Now, Pujya Guruji says one very beautiful thing. He says that the confusion about our duty arises from ignorance of our identity. What is this line? Confusion about our duty arises from ignorance of our identity. Means what? Who am I? If that is clear, then what am I supposed to do will become clear. If who am I is clear, what am I supposed to do will become clear. For example, in Arjuna's case, he was a warrior. So he went there as a warrior. Now, if you are a warrior, what are you supposed to do? You are supposed to fight. But confusion happened about what am I supposed to do. Why? Because he forgot that he is a warrior. He thought he is son of so-and-so, grandson of so-and-so, disciple of so-and-so. Then what happens? The moment you forget your identity, you are confused about your duty. You don't know. Now you are confused. Should I fight with them? Why? Because they are all worshipful people. I have so far have been, worshipping them. Now how can I fight with them? Why this doubt came? Because the fellow forgot he is standing there as warrior. Now, the thing doesn't stop there. So he is not standing there as somebody's relative. He is not gone there for somebody's marriage or party that he has to greet everybody nicely and how are you, etc. No, he is there as a warrior. But more than that, one step further, he is that pure self, that consciousness who doesn't die and who doesn't kill. He doesn't know this. This identity that Arjuna is lacking, the knowledge is not there about this identity that I am that supreme self. And therefore, Bhagavan Shri Krishna begins second chapter. The very first knowledge that he has given is about his ultimate identity. He tells Arjuna, you are being sad because you think that you are going to kill them and you have to fight with your elders. But let me tell you something, you are that supreme self who doesn't kill nor gets killed. The point here that I am trying to make here is, the moment my concept of my identity changes, my concept of my duty also will improve. The moment I understand that I am not just this, but I am this also, my duty, sense of duty will change. What am I supposed to do? I will gain clarity. And then what am I supposed to do? I will do it. And what am I supposed to get? I will get it. Some people will be wondering, why is Veggie starting with all these things? Because the very first verse is a sixer here. So unless I give this background, people will not have head and tail of it. What is Guruji talking about? So before we go there, let us understand this concept. Now, Vedanta tells me what is my ultimate identity. What we just said, that Bhagavan Shri Krishna is also trying to tell Arjuna, that is what Vedanta is telling us, that I am that Satchidananda Swarupa, Parabrahma, Paramatma. That is what I am. So Satchidananda means what? Existence, consciousness, bliss. So bliss is my nature. I am not happy, I am happiness. This is what Vedanta is telling. Now, obviously, the next question will be, why should I listen to Vedanta? Why? Because my experience is something very different. My experience is rather exact opposite. I always have this tension whether I will die or I will live long. I have a feeling that I don't know many things. So existence, opposite of that is death. Sometimes we say consciousness is knowledge. I don't know many things. And you are saying that I am of the nature of happiness. I disagree completely. Why? Because I am of the nature of sorrow. I know it. For most of the times I am sad. They say sometimes my face is also, even when I am not saying anything, people think that I am sad. That's what my face is. How can you say that I am of the nature of happiness? And if Vedanta is telling like this, why should I listen to Vedanta? Because, my dear, these are certain things over which you have no grasp. You cannot experience all these things immediately unless somebody tells. I'll give you an example. We all have been seeing from our childhood sunrise and sunset. Have we been seeing or not? We have been seeing. Sun rises in the east, sun sets in the west. We know it. We have been seeing. But then suddenly you go into the physics class and physics class says exactly opposite. In the physics class, you understand that the sun is not moving, earth is moving. And because of the rotation of the earth, you feel that sun is rising and sun is setting. Now, will you accept? Yeah, you will accept. Why? Because it is science. This you will not accept. Why? Because it is spirituality. When it comes to spirituality, you will ask 100 questions. Science, you just accept. Yes, correct. Sun doesn't rise, sun doesn't set. But is not my experience exactly opposite to that? My experience is, when I look in the sky, which color I see? I see blue color. Occasionally black, okay, when it is rainy season, etc. But I see blue color. Now you go to physics class, and physics class, there's sky is not blue. Sky is colorless. Now, first of all, I don't know what do you mean by colorless. Because if it is colorless, then I have never seen it. But still we believe. Why? because these are the things which are beyond our perception. Therefore, to begin with, what do? We say, yes, let us have faith that whatever physics is telling is true. Then what? Then let us go further and do some experiments, and then we ourselves will understand. Now, technically speaking, according to physics, when we started the class and where we are now, we have moved. Did you feel anything like that? No, we didn't feel anything like that, but we have moved because the earth is rotating. So half an hour back, we were at a different space, different place, and now we are at a different, but we don't feel it. We don't see earth moving. We don't feel it moving, but it is. We see the sun moving, but it is not. Now, this is a difference in my perception and the knowledge that the physics is giving. Physics is a science. So I believe and I say that, okay, it may be true. Then let me inquire into it and let me find out whether it is really true or not. I am trying to tell you same thing you do with spirituality. When the Vedanta is telling, when Vedas are telling that you are Satchidananda, believe. I am not saying believe blindly, inquire into it so that it is not a blind faith, but believe to begin with. Why? Because it is something beyond our ken of understanding, beyond our perception, beyond our inference, beyond our intelligence. They say alaukika vishaye veda pramanam. In these type of subject matters which are alaukika, which are beyond senses, for all these kind of subjects, Vedaha pramanam. The Vedas are the valid means of knowledge. I am not saying you believe blindly, but have at least that faith that yes, there is a possibility that what Vedanta is telling, what Vedas are telling is true. So when it says that I am that supreme self, which is of the nature of existence, consciousness, bliss, let me believe it for a moment, let me inquire into it, and let me find out for myself whether it is true or not. Right? So when this kind of analysis is done, so this kind of analysis is called as logic that follows the guidance given by Vedas. Shruti Anusarini Yukti. So the logic that I am telling Sanskrit words in between not to scare you. I am telling Sanskrit words because those who have studied Vedanta will immediately catch that, will immediately understand what am I talking about. So Vedanta is Shruti, Vedas is Shruti. Shruti Anusarini, the following the words of Vedas, Yukti, logic. Logic that is following the words of Vedas is what we need to have to understand how do I experience this bliss nature of myself. We want happiness. We are happiness. The gap between these two need to be bridged. See, something that I am, I cannot want. But right now, that is what is happening. I want to be happy, which is very contradictory because I am that happiness. But the problem is I don't know that I am happiness. Problem is I don't feel that I am happiness. And therefore, this gap which is there, I want happiness to I am happiness. This needs to be bridged through Shruti Anusarini Yukti. So I have to first listen to Vedanta, understand it, use my own inquiry, use my own logic, follow it up, and then reach that understanding that I am happiness. So this is what is called a spiritual life. See, we began by saying that we all have common want, common desire, and that is happiness. The only difference is most of the people seek happiness from outside, and we all come in that category actually. But at some point of time, we realize that no, there is nothing. I do get little bit of joy from outside world, but the source lies somewhere else. And the moment we turn our attention within to experience that happiness, then our spiritual life starts. That person is called as a spiritual person. Then we said that when this I want happiness which is in me or which is me, when this is clear, then I need to understand who am I. Then it will be clear what am I supposed to do. So identity will give me clarity on my duty. So then we again took recourse to the Vedas and Vedanta, which tells me that I am of the nature of this existence, consciousness, bliss. And therefore, what I am seeking is actually me, myself. I think there is a very famous quote by Rumi: what you seek, seeks you. Vedanta goes one step further and says, what you seek is you. Not is seeking, it is you. Now, how do I know it? Now, that is what comprises the entire spiritual life. So we are starting on this journey of I want happiness to I am happiness. And to this journey, the spiritual life, Pujya Guruji, Swami Tejomayanand has written 4 texts, which are together called as Sadhana Sopana. Sadhana means, instrument, means. And Sopana means path. So the path, spiritual path, to get clarity on that spiritual path, Pujya Guruji, Swami Tejomayanand has authored 4 texts. First is called Jnanasara. Jnanasara. One text is called Jnanasara. Jnanasara is a text where the entire spiritual journey is shown from Baddha to Siddha. So Baddha means bound. A person feels that I am bound. I am an individual jiva who is bound by so many things in my life. And how does that person slowly become sadhaka, etc., through different steps, finally becomes Siddha. Siddha is accomplished, the person of knowledge. So from Baddha to Siddha, this journey is given in the text called Jnanasara. Second text is Dhyana Swarupam. Jnanasara, Sara means essence. Jnana means knowledge, essence of knowledge. Then second text is Dhyana Swarupam, the nature of meditation, Dhyana. So in that text, Pujya Guruji explains what exactly is meditation, what is not meditation, and is it an action or is it something else? What am I supposed to do? How do I prepare for meditation? All the questions about meditation are answered in that second text called Dhyana Swarupam. The third text is Bhakti Sudha. Bhakti Sudha. Sudha means nectar. And Bhakti means devotion. We know that. So nectar of devotion. So how do I walk on this path of devotion? How can devotion help me in my spiritual unfoldment? To go there, what exactly is devotion? What are the steps that I am supposed to follow in the path of devotion? All those questions are answered in this third text called Bhakti Sudha. And the fourth text that we are studying or we are going to study now is Manashodhanam. So this Manashodhanam text is part of a 4 text series, Sadhana Sopana. One of the 4. And what do you mean by Manashodhanam? Shodha, sometimes word is very well, very often used in Hindi, in Marathi, etc., as research, isn't it? So Manashodhanam means let us find out where is mind. No. Shodha comes from Shuddhi. So Shodhanam means purification. Actually, research is called as Shodha because you are purifying your knowledge. That's why research is called as Shodha. So Manashodhanam, one word, Manashodhanam, Manasaha Shodhanam, the purification of mind, is what is the title of this text. Now, you see the title only is given in such a way that it is very clear what are we going to study in this? What are we going to study in this? How are we going to purify mind? So thus we have to go from I want happiness to I am happiness. I have these 4 texts which will help me in gaining the required means, sadhana sopana, required means, so that finally I get to the knowledge of self and then I become realized. So Jnanasara, Dhyana Swarupam, Bhakti Sudha, and Manashodhanam. Now we are into this 4th text. It doesn't mean that you have to study 3 texts first to come to this 4th. Okay, I kept that at last because we are going to study it. It's not that we are supposed to study in that order or anything like that. These are just 4 texts that we are supposed to study, and one of it we are taking. They say no, keep the best for the last. So that's why I have kept it, because we are going to elaborate more on that. Now, this much is sufficient. So I explained to you so far why are we studying Manashodhanam, this text, to bridge that gap between I want happiness to I am happiness. Right now, why now? Why didn't we do it before, or why not afterwards, after we retire, etc.? See, for a simple reason, because from childhood we have neglected our mind. No. Wow. What do you mean we are neglecting? You see, from childhood till now, we have done so much for our body. True or not? 3 times a day, sometimes 4 times a day also. Feed. Okay. Once in a while, move it. Exercise. Some say, no, I'm a exercise freak. Okay, very good. Anyways, International Yoga Day is tomorrow only. So anyways, now everybody has started doing yoga, etc. So we have done so much for the body. We walk, we do exercise, we go to doctor, different things we do to keep our body healthy and working. Correct? We keep feeding it water, juice, this, that, everything we give. Now to feed our intellect, we have gone to school, college, university, etc. We read different things to feed our intellect, isn't it? What have we done to feed our mind? Did we train our mind so far? We have trained our body, we have trained our intellect also, isn't it? By remembering, by memorizing those tables and complicated things and words and biology, some unbelievably long words used to be there. Okay, I am not disrespecting anything, but I used to find it very difficult to remember those medulla oblongata, something like this, long words. But we have trained our intellect. The moment somebody says something, we immediately answer. Somebody is immediately, when they says 15 into 12 how much, we immediately answer. How come you are able to answer? Because you have trained your intellect. Body you have trained, intellect you have trained. What happened to mind? Mind I have neglected totally. Think about it. Did we go to any class for training our mind? We went to gym, we went to school. Did we go to any class to train our mind? No, we have not. Did we ever think that we have to pay attention and see what the mind is doing? Do we even know what exactly our mind is? See, mind has been neglected, and therefore it needs to be trained. Nothing happens on its own. Only mistakes happen on its own. Okay, all other things, good things to happen, you have to put efforts. So if you want to do something better in life, if you want to change your mind, you have to put efforts for it. And therefore purification of mind is something that is important. Why? Because you have been neglecting it throughout. That is number one. Number two, mind is the most important instrument. You see, I agree that most of us, when we meet somebody, our first impression is the physical impression, that the person looks good. And therefore, the moment we look at somebody, we have already formed our notions. Just like, many of you must have seen me for the first time today. Then what? Already some image is formed. And you have certain impression about me that this person is like this. I am not saying good impression or bad impression, but I am saying we have already formed impression. But when we start being with that person more and more, we understand that person's mind. And remember, the moment we have understood the mind, the physical personality doesn't matter. A person may look very beautiful or good looking according to you, but if you hate that person, then you don't want to look at that person, isn't it? See, that time intellectual personality also will not catch you. Sometimes, we get very much attracted by somebody's intellectual personality. We listen to some teacher, etc., and say, what brilliant, brilliant. But you see, if you don't connect with the mind, that intellectual personality, you are not going to like. Somebody comes and says, Veji spoke so well. Hey, I don't like him. I hate that person. Now, even if somebody likes the physical personality, it will be changed. Why? Because my mind doesn't like it. Actually speaking, if you see carefully, when two people meet, it is not two people meeting, it is two minds meeting. And therefore, we often use these kind of phrases in our day-to-day conversation also, that we didn't connect. Don't we say this? That, he's a good person. I am not saying, but what? Connection did not happen. Now, which connection are we talking about? The connection of minds is what we are talking about. A person may be very good looking and very intelligent, but if the mind is not good, we don't like that person. Isn't it? Simple things. If the person gets angry a lot, do you like such person? Maybe intelligent, very intelligent, maybe scholar. But if the person gets angry, then the wife says, hey, you scholar, you are scholar in university, okay? Keep your scholarliness there. Don't show me attitude when you come home. Here you are not that professor of somebody, you are my husband. Listen to what I am telling. Why? Because if that person gets angry, you don't like it. A person may have intelligence. A person may be good looking, but mind is what matters. Now, when we are living in this society, don't you think that it is our mind which is contacting the whole world? Rather, it is our mind which is contacting different minds. So not only that we have neglected the mind, but we have neglected the most important instrument that we have, and that is mind. Don't we know people who may not be intelligent that we think, who may not be good looking? See, actually there is beauty in everybody. I am not talking from that standpoint, but they may not be good looking for us, but we just like them. Why? Because they have very pure heart, very simple mind. Don't we like such people? I'll go one step further and I will tell, a person whose mind is pure automatically is beautiful and intelligent. Automatically. Doesn't have to put efforts. And other people, they put efforts to show it. Why? Because their mind is not pure. Therefore, they have to show it that they are intelligent or they are beautiful. A person who is pure-hearted automatically becomes beautiful in the appearance as well as intelligent. So it is actually the mind which is the most important instrument. Pujya Gurudev used to often say, you master the mind, you master the world. Why? Because there is nothing other than it. So mind is something which we have to focus on now. We might have neglected it, it's okay, it happens. But now we will focus. So you see now, in your individual life, mind matters or not? Yes, it matters. Why? Because mind only is deciding everything. Suddenly you come for class and you have been preparing that, to Sunday 20th class is going to start. But suppose 10 minutes before the class starts, the mind says, I am sleepy. Gone. What you have been preparing for so long is gone. Why? Because mind has decided, mind is sleepy. Isn't it? You plan so many things you want to study and next day is exam, etc. Mind says that day I want to see a movie. You have decided that you are going to do Ekadashi Upvasa and that same day mind says I want to eat pizza. You see, mind does all these things and then you run behind it. In my individual life also, everything is actually governed by mind. Many times we just get up and we are like this. Then every single person that you meet that day, they say, what happened to you? No, but what happened? I don't know. But why are you sad? I don't know. For no reason, mind has decided that I am going to remain sad. And then the whole day goes in showing people that I am sad. And we are very interesting people. Mind not only says that you should be sad, mind says that you should tell people that you are sad. So when everybody is enjoying, you will sit in a corner and then wait for somebody to come. Hey, come, let us go. Then you will say, no, but did anybody say anything to you? Did anything happen? 100 questions you will make that person ask. Actually, that person doesn't want to ask those questions, but you will make that person ask all these questions. Why? Because individually mind has decided that I am going to remain sad. Very funny. Mind is very funny. Mind gets a kind of happiness by being sad also. People may not agree to this, but that is the fact. Many people, when they see movies, emotional dramas, they cry. Now my technical question is, if you cry, why are you watching that movie again? But no, mind enjoys that sorrow also. And therefore mind wants to watch more and more such movies which will make you cry. And at the end of it, I enjoyed. You were crying? But it was so. What emotions? And what emotions? Mind enjoys that sorrow also. Mind is a very funny thing. So individual life, mind plays a very important role. You see, just imagine if I can control the mind and say that, okay, now I have to study. Mind, get in line. Let us focus on study. When I'm eating something, suppose I can train my mind and say, mind, this is what you want. So not that I will get the food that I want, but what I have got is what I want. Suppose I can train my mind to be like that, it will never become sorrowful. It will never become sad. Otherwise, all the time what happens when I am sitting and eating something, I want that. Then when I go and have that, then I want something else. Then something else. Then something else. It goes on happening. In my individual life, if I can focus on mind and get myself to do or like what am I getting already, my life will become so easy and so happy. Now, individual life, personal life also, family life also. Sometimes you are angry and then you get angry on somebody, and then that person gets angry on you, and then both of you start shouting at each other, and then other family members are looking, oh, gone, today my food is going to go. Why? Because husband and wife are fighting, and therefore wife is going to make something that the husband doesn't like, and in the process, me as a child or as a parent, am I going to suffer? In family life also, mind is most important. To have a good mind, isn't it the main requirement, actually speaking, to get married also? Isn't it? See, if you just see the physical appearance of a person or the degrees that the person have, doesn't mean that you will be able to live with that person for a whole life. What actually matters is, are our minds in line, in one line? Are they resonating? That's what matters. And if that is happening, then the intellectual, equivalence or physically, it doesn't matter. Nothing else matters. Why? Because the minds have resonated. Don't you think in our family life also, mind is most important? Not only in that, also professional life. You take, some people say, no, Swamiji, professional life is only intelligence. I go there, I do my work and come back. That is not sufficient, my dear. How you interact with other people is also that much important. Isn't it? When a deputy comes to you, or when your boss comes to you, how do you respond? How do you make sure that the team remains together? Because nothing in professional life also can be achieved by one person. It always has to be a team effort. And to keep that team together, you have to interact with your mind to other people's minds. Isn't it? In interview, etc., actually what they want to see is, how are you? They don't want to see what do you know. Why? Because that can be trained. See, all the offices, nowadays, they have their own training. Yes or no? After 4 years of engineering also, they say we don't believe in your knowledge. Why? Degree is not image of your knowledge. You got degree doesn't mean you will have knowledge. Therefore, we will train you 3 months training, 6 months training, 1 year training. All of them train. The only thing that they check is how is that person? Is that person ready to learn? Is that person humble? Think about it. The mind matters most. See, even if you say no loyalty, whether the person is loyal towards the company or not, even between thieves, there needs to be loyalty. Even one thief wants to partner with another thief, will check for loyalty. Though he is disloyal to the whole society and universe, but still between them, they want loyalty. Again, in professional life also, mind plays the most important role. Social life also same. So whether it is your individual life, whether it is your personal family life, professional life, or social life, in all these, mind is most important, and therefore effort should be put to understand the mind, to get mind in line with what I am supposed to do. And for that purpose, we are going to study this Manashodhanam. Right? So we understood what is the importance of spiritual life. We understood why are we supposed to study anything like this. Now we also understood why are we studying this particular text. Why are we trying to inquire into mind? Because it is neglected, number one. It is most important, number two. And actually, if I master mind, I can master everything. And therefore, I must understand what is my mind and how to purify it. That is what we are going to see in this beautiful text called Manashodhanam. Actually, this text is a small text, 25 verses, that Puja Guruji has put together, and very simple Sanskrit, very free-flowing Sanskrit, and very sweet actually to understand also. So we'll be going through this. When it comes to Vedanta, it is a Prakarana Grantha. It is a preliminary text. Just like we have, other Prakarana Granthas, Tattvabodha, Atmabodha, etc. And this Prakarana Grantha preliminary text is with very specific purpose. And the purpose is clear in the title itself, Manashodhanam, purification of mind. So it will not elaborate on the definitions in Vedanta. It will not elaborate on other concepts of Vedanta. It will not speak about different paths in Vedanta. No, it is having a specific purpose, how to purify mind. Okay, so with this, we stop for today. Okay, if you have any questions to ask, say, so every session we are going to do like this. So for 1 hour, we will have session. Now it is 5:45, isn't it? Yes, 1 hour. And then for last 10-15 minutes, if you have any questions, you can ask. Okay, for live interaction, we are going to keep it that way. Okay, so you are free to ask. From next class, we will begin with the first verse. If anybody has any question, please raise your hand or unmute yourself, and then you can ask. Nagesh ji, yes, please. Unmute yourself. Yes.
Hari Om, Chaitanya ji. Hari Om. No, I had a simple question, honestly. I mean, the word purpose in life is not a static one. Okay, unless we see it from the context of self-realization. Okay, in a typical life of a person, purpose keeps changing. So your responses to that, how you achieve it, also keeps changing. So is there a fixity to happiness really?
So I will put it like this. See, goal of life is always one. Goals in life may change. Goal of life always remains one. See, goals in life change every moment.
Yeah.
For example, my next goal may be that, I want to finish this. Now, in that goals in life also, there are short-term goals, long-term goals. you know, 5 years down the line, what I want to do, what graduation I want to do, what post graduation. It can be a simple goal in life also, that today I want to sleep early. That's also goal in life. So those goals in life keep changing, and according to that, our response to that also keeps changing, just like you said. But goal of life always remains constant. And that goal of life for everybody is same, and that is permanent happiness. Everybody wants that only. Actually, even a person who is committing suicide actually wants happiness. That person thinks that the present situation, my body that I have present, my mind that I am fed up with, not able to give me that permanent happiness, and therefore I am ready to sacrifice my life for getting permanent happiness. So goals in life keep changing. They should keep changing also. Then that only will give us inspiration to continue living and continue doing things. But goal of life remains same. Now, some people understand that goal of life, some people don't. That may differ, but still they are seeking same.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Anybody else?
Yeah, I wanted to ask question.
Please tell your name, switch on your video, and yes.
I'm Yogini Shah.
Hariom.
Yeah, just I wanted okay, and are there any tips to control anger?
Will come. That is going to come in the text itself. Okay, and we will also focus on some of the major emotions that we have and how we can, you know, deal with those. So of course that will form major part of the text. Yes, Uma ji had some question. Yes, please.
Hariom, Chaitanya ji.
Hariom.
I have a question regarding the shlokas that are there in the text. Are they from a scripture or are they written by Guruji?
They are written by Guruji.
Okay.
Some of them are from scriptures where he tells that
Okay.
now coming verses are taken from here. But all other verses are written by him.
Okay. So it's completely original.
Original work.
Wow.
Original work.
Thank you. Hariom.
Hariom. Anybody else has any question?
Hi, Hariom Swamiji, this is Archana.
Ha.
So I had one question now. We've done this text once. Obviously, this requires many times worth of learning to actually imbibe it. But now that I see it, I wish that we had learned it a little earlier in life. Is there a way we can actually take it to kids? Would you advise the same text or kind of modify it when we tell our kids, say a teenager?
Elaborate on question little more. See, there is no, first of all, there is nothing called as delay in learning, number one, because though we always feel that I should have come across this much earlier, but anyways, that thought has no meaning, because anyways, I didn't somehow, though our parents were telling us to do, we didn't focus. Fine, whatever happened. Now that I have got the opportunity, we should not waste it anymore. That's what should be our approach. What was the second part of the question?
So as I learned this text, now I have a daughter who's 16. So would you, if I am trying to teach this to her, obviously I'm trying to do too many things at the same time, but would you say this text would be appropriate for a younger child, or it's too early?
See, no, it is not too early. Of course, it is not too early, and it is very well, it is meant for youngsters also. But if you are trying to teach that child, it is wrong. You see, youngsters don't learn like that at all. So the moment you think that I want to teach my child something who is about 12, 13, it won't work. When they ask questions, that's the only time you can teach them something. Till the time they are not asking questions, you actually cannot say anything. You can keep guiding, right? You can keep guiding. You can keep living like that so that they follow. See, one of the most important things I remember, I must have told in the parenting session also, which I had long time back, I think some 6-7 years back I had for my Amazon, that children learn through eyes, not through ears. They see what you are doing and they will do like that. You may say 100 other things, But if you are speaking in a particular way, you are using a bad language, they will use bad language. You may say to them 100 times, don't use bad language. It doesn't work. See, think about it, how we learned things. We also learned like that only. When my mother was trying to tell me something, which was good for me, I did not listen. Now to expect that children should listen, and then you say that, so nowadays, children are like that. Oh, children were always like that. You were also like that only. No change there. So if that question is posed to me, that whether I should teach it to children, I don't know. Because with parents there is another, what you say, more repulsion towards what parents want to say. So somebody else does it, it may work better. But of course the text is meant for youngsters also. There is nothing like, it is meant only for advanced students, nothing like that. It's meant for all. Right. Hope I have answered. Yes, Vishwanath ji, yes.
Yeah. This Manashodhanam text is basically, you had said, is for purification of one's mind. The mind as a nature is a flow of thoughts. Yeah, you cannot change that. So that mind, the thoughts, the flow might be turbulent at many times and soft flowing at other times. Now, what is this book, focusing on? Is it for moderating the type of flow, or totally blocking the flow, or blanking the mind? Or what exactly are we trying to do?
Surely not blocking, because that, as you said rightly, it cannot happen. Mind is flow of thoughts. There will be flow of thoughts. You cannot stop the flow for sure. It is more to do with what kind of thoughts are flowing. When we say river is pure, river is flow of water, but river is pure means what? The water is pure. So when we say purification of mind, it means purification of thoughts. So of course, to purify the mind, sometimes we will have to curtail the flow a bit so that it is easy to purify. Sometimes you may have to curtail more. You may have to channelize it. Different kinds of things are required. All those techniques will be discussed. So it is not just about curtailing the flow of thoughts. Of course, that also will be required, because too many thoughts in mind, of course, will create disturbance. But at the same time, what kind of thoughts? Even if there are less number of thoughts, what are the kind of thoughts that are there? And in which direction are they flowing? All this matters.
Thank you.
Right. Sneha ji has a question. You can switch on your video and ask, please. Yes.
Hari Om Swami ji.
Hari.
I just had a question. You made a very pertinent point. You said there has to be a resonance in the minds in a relationship, whether at personal relationships or whether at the workplace. You might think that you're the embodiment of happiness, but other people, they might be sorrowful, they may be angry. How do you handle that? You may start your day feeling spiritual, happy. You can do a lot of those things. You can focus on devoting what you're doing to the Lord and do everything right, but you will still meet people who will be filled with anger or disappointment. So like you were giving an example, somebody just got up and he's sorrowful since morning. So you have to meet all of those people and you have to get through the day interacting with those people. How do you do that?
So what we will do during this text is, of course, I'm not going to answer that right now because that will come in the text. What are we going to do is, when we say anger as an emotion, we will see both sides of it. In the sense, when I am angry, what am I supposed to do? And when somebody else is angry, what am I supposed to do? If I am lazy, what am I supposed to do? And if my partner or somebody that matters to me is lazy, what am I supposed to do? So every single emotion that we will take for discussion, we will take it from both sides. How I should remain happy, and if another person is sad, what should I do? In both ways, we will try to discuss this. So what you are saying will come in the text. How do I face anger? But that anger will mean both my own anger or somebody's anger on me. Or rather somebody's anger on somebody else. How do I face? There are different kinds of situations that we are in, right? So we'll try to discuss all of them. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Okay, I think that's it for the first session. So we will all meet next Sunday, same time, 4:45. We start sharp on time, 4:45. Next time there is no introduction, etc. So we'll directly start with the session, 1 hour of session, and last 15 minutes for question answer. Right? We'll conclude with prayer. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.